In this video, I'm going to break down a $2.5 million pre-order, not even a book launch, a pre-order, and explain how you can use some of those same strategies for your books, regardless of what your budget might be, because everyone is not balling like that. So I'm the owner of Self Publishing, and I help authors get from the page to the people with efficient and effective marketing strategies. And so with my audience and with my authors, I focus on profitable publishing, specifically with pre-orders. And so my most recent book features that, profitable publishing with pre-orders. And so I'll be using this as well as the author's books to show you how you can tap into some of these strategies and why they're even important for you to know in the first place. So let me know where you are watching from in the world and drop the information about your book in the chat because someone might be interested. Your audience might be here. All right, so by now you possibly have heard of the book launch with Alex Hormozi. If you are in the online marketing space, you know exactly who I'm talking about. If you are more the author side versus the veteran business owner, you might not be as familiar with him. So I'm going to give you a breakdown of who he is, and then we'll get into 5 lessons that you can learn from his most recent book launch and how you can use that to maximize your pre-order profits. So, all right, let's get started. Now, for context, Alex Hormozi is a book he's an author, but he's also a marketer. Essentially, he's a marketer at heart, but he uses book launches and pre-orders to elevate his brand, to build authority, and to generate leads. And so yesterday, I tried to get it off the presses as quickly as possible. Yesterday, he actually launched his third book, which is $100 million money models. And so I'll mention his 2 other books earlier and show those, and I'll add those in the link if you're watching over on YouTube. And with that, he actually used his money models to implement and to demonstrate what it is that he does. So if you're someone who is a nonfiction author, you are an authority, you are someone who's an expert in your space, it is like chef's kiss when you can actually use your strategies to demonstrate with your own book launches, your own pre-orders, your own implementation, because obviously if your strategy works, why not use it for your own stuff? And so he did that beautifully, and we'll talk about that. So just to give you some stats, a little bit about him, he is, like I said, an online marketer, and let me take a step back. So whether or not you like him, whether or not you agree with his strategies, whether you are a fan or not, that's really not what we're getting into today. Because I'm someone who believes that you don't have to necessarily be a fan of someone in order to learn from them. And you don't necessarily have to be part of, like, for example, with Beyonce, the Beehive, to appreciate that she is talented. So, like, obviously, she's got skills. And same thing with, like, whoever else, like Rihanna. I don't know what she calls her people, but you get what I'm saying. So, with this, if you feel some kind of way about him, go ahead and put that in your back pocket and focus in on the lessons, because it's so easy to be so consumed with how you personally feel about someone that you're just missing excellent nuggets, gems that are being dropped because you're caught up on that. But hopefully that's not you. So just want to give that disclaimer. So with his book launch, just for stats, he did 84,000 books in pre-orders. So for context, his book is $29.99 right now at the time of this recording, and he sold 84,000 of them in pre-orders. And this is a part of he did this during his pre-launch. So he started his pre-launch about a month ago. It was July 16th when I got the first email that something was coming. He let people know, introduced his concept of what a money model is. And essentially, it's a series of steps that you take customers through so that they can purchase from you more often, and also spend more money with you, essentially. So customer retention and how to get that done. And then for that process, so it was about 6 weeks that he had pre-sales open. So he did 84,000 pre-orders. And then, sorry, I'm doing the math. I did the math earlier. And then it was $29.99 per book. And so I just want to check my stats, make sure that's correct. But when I looked earlier, it was about 2.5 million in pre-orders. So, pause for a second. 84,000. Yeah, 2.5. And so that was just in pre-orders in 6 weeks. Now, you might be thinking, okay, well, I don't have Alex's budget. And you may have even seen some of his ads. And that's not the point. That's another limiting belief I want you to kind of put in your back pocket for a second, dream a little dream, and understand that you don't have to have that budget to be able to get results. You don't have to be able to invest millions of dollars into your ads in order to, or into using ads in general in the first place, because maybe you're not even there yet. You don't have to have those things in order to sell books or in order to increase your income when it comes to your products, services, offers, things like that. His launch day, he also invited the Guinness World Record folks to come because he was aiming to beat the record for the most nonfiction books sold within the first 24 hours. And he beat that within the first couple hours of the launch. And so the previous record was 1.4 million. And he didn't say who held the record, and I don't remember offhand, but he listed off the people that typically had the most books sold, and it was like Harry Potter, um, politicians, things like that. So Michelle Obama was one of the people as well. And so he beat that within the time frame, and he beat it by 1 million copies. And so yesterday, the last time I looked, it was at 2.5 million copies, and that was less than 24 hours. Now, and I'm saying this in a certain way because he decided to go live again today. And so he's doing the ticker, so he's making more sales today. So it's past the 24-hour mark at this point, but just to show that he's still going. So the actual launch lasted 10 hours. Now, when you go back and look at the recording for the first day, because he's doing 2 days, the first day originally ended at 9 hours and 50 minutes, and I only know that because I went back to look at the minute mark. But when I went back to look today to grab the link, it was closer to like 7 hours. So they did something where they either chopped some of it off or cut some of it. And I'll explain later why that might have happened. But just to kind of give you context. So he's going live for almost 10 hours. And I don't think that it intentionally was to last that long. There were a couple things that happened that probably made that be the result. But say all that to say, imagine you're thinking, okay, do I even want to have a launch party? How long is it going to be? This man, and he has a team, obviously has a team. He went live for 10 hours. That's like longer than a regular work shift. And in that time, the Guinness people are in the background. They're like letting them know, updating, like, okay, you're this far away. And there's a ticker, like a number thing that keeps going for the audience to see that, okay, we've made the goal. And it was something where it was like people were encouraged to purchase. They were encouraged to actually be a part of history because that's a really dope thing to be able to do. Now, in order to make this happen, he also had 22,000 affiliates that were promoting the book. And so with that, he gave them different assets they could use. So he gave them videos, wording, email copy, things like that. And so once again, don't get caught up in I don't have 22,000 people. I have 22,000 customers. How can I get 22,000 people to support me? You don't have to have as large of an audience to be able to get results. Like you can still get results with a small audience. And also I think about it like this, like because before this, Alex had already set the bar so high with his previous book launches, the bar's already high for him in terms of what he's going to do. And not that that means you need to aim lower, but it just means that once you've set a certain standard, then the expectation is just to go higher. So he was able to do that for his launch, but he didn't always start there. So when he first started out, and he wasn't always an author. His first business, or maybe not his first business, but his earlier businesses were with gyms, and then he's gone broke twice in terms of like having a negative balance in his account to the tune of like tens of thousands of dollars, and has to just start over. And so all of this comes with learning and reiterating or iterating and all that kind of stuff. So once again, look past the numbers, just catch the vision and be encouraged. And then during the live stream, like I said, there was some things that were weird that happened. And so, but there's a lesson that can be pulled from that. Really recognizing your audience and understanding who they are. And I'll give some examples to show you how that is. And then of course he offered bonuses in his offer, and I'll explain his offer in just a second. So the 5 strategies behind the launch and how you can implement those for yourself. So the first one is one that I am huge about talking about, is how pre-orders are validation that you are writing something that's wonderful and that is needed in the marketplace. And so it's also a way to build upfront income. So if you are having somebody pre-order a book, which I talk about in my book, they are especially, let me take a step back. If you're having somebody pre-order your book, first, that's fabulous. That's wonderful. That means they are trusting you that you're going to create something that is worth their income, that's worth their time, that's worth paying for in advance. And especially in this economy, it's important that you treat them with care and make sure that you make good on your word. And so even to have that type of trust with someone is wonderful. But when they're able to order it from your website, which is what he's specifically focused on, currently the book is not available on Amazon. I do believe that he'll add it on Amazon later. And I only say that because that's what he's done with his previous two books, and they're bestsellers on there as well, which is another point. But selling it on your site is something where if someone's taking the time to leave these larger marketers or marketplaces, they're leaving these larger retailers, is what I want to say. They are not buying it from Barnes and Noble. They're not buying it from Amazon, Walmart, da da da. These places, and they're coming directly to your website. That's somebody who's most likely going to be a super fan and somebody that you really want to tap into to be a partner with you or to support them in supporting you. So making it easy for them to support you. So one thing I do in particular is for people who are part of my street team, I give them things they can use to actually support the launch. So I give them wording that they can use for social media. And I've been doing this for since I've written books, even for my first book. I give them graphics they can use. And so this is something that Alex did as well. He extended it, of course, on a larger scale, but he gave, and for reference, I wasn't an affiliate, but just I have fellow colleagues that were affiliates that shared some of the things that were given just to tell what was included for affiliates. And so for example, with that, he gave them videos from their ads. From his ads, he gave them email wording. And so those are things that I typically would give my street team as well, because it makes it easier for them to advertise for you. And so then also, when someone's buying from your website, there's another level of trust because they're trusting you with their information. They're trusting you that you're going to deliver the book. They're also trusting you that you are going to take care of their personal sensitive information. And so it's somebody who's a deeper fan. And with that, so going back to the validation of upfront value. So if he was able to do $84,000, or not dollars, I'm sorry, 84,000 pre-orders, that means that he's done a few things right. So he has an audience that is willing to pre-order the book. So he has an audience of trusted individuals. And then he also has people who want those incentives and those bonuses that he included. And so if you ordered on the pre-order, you were automatically considered a VIP for the launch. And he had a slightly different launch experience, meaning a slightly different viewing experience. For those folks, they had a different link. They had a couple extra things that they could do. I didn't join VIP, but it's just like a way to elevate the experience for them. And then with that, it helps you as the author to really have confidence in what it is that you're creating. So if you're selling pre-orders specifically on your site, you are getting that financial validation, meaning you're not having to wait 60 days for Amazon to deposit money in your account when your book is actually released for a pre-order, because you're getting the money consistently. So let's say you sell a couple books your first week that you announce the pre-order, you're getting those funds. Let's say more people buy towards the end, you're getting those funds. And so it makes it easier and more encouraging for you to keep finishing whatever publishing process that you have, because you're getting paid. So just like a job, you go to work, you get paid, you have that motivation of, okay, well, I'm going to get a paycheck at the end of this, and you're not having to wait as long. So for example, let's say your book launch is, let's say your pre-sale and your book launch is 6 months, or let's say it's a year. That's a really long time to wait to get paid and to continuously have to upfront cost for your books. Now, in Alex's case, they had the funds, so it wasn't as big of a deal. But at the same time, he mentioned that his pre-orders paid for the entire launch event. So this is a multi-million-dollar event and a multi-day event at this point, but it covered the entirety of the event. And so if you've seen any of the clips, this is a huge event. So they've got audio visual, they had a generator, they had multiple backups for the internet and the power. Like, this is a huge event, and he's got a huge team. And so it was able to cover that with pre-orders, and he actually made money. And he showed a breakdown of how much he spent on ads and how much he spent on ads and how much those ads gave a return on their investment. So he actually made money by having the event. So imagine if your book launch party paid you to actually have the party. And that's what you can do with pre-orders, is being able to generate that income to get your money back from your publishing costs, which is something I've done 4 times for my books, and then also support dozens of other authors to do the same as well through my course, Preorder Profits, and then also through my Preorder Profits VIP days. And with that, you just really want to consider how you can implement the power of pre-orders in your book. So that's point number one, is to really understand that pre-orders provide validation and they provide upfront income that you can use to be able to tap into utilizing it for your launch. And so the second point is that hosting your pre-order on your site provides you with ownership. And when I say that, I mean ownership of customer data, not in a creepy way, but customer data. It provides you ownership of the experience, meaning that the time from when someone purchases to the time they get their book and beyond, you're able to curate this really cool experience that's only really bound by your imagination. Now, as an author, as a business owner, you typically are going to be somebody who's creative. And so there's ways that you can develop that experience for them. But if you are sending them to places like Amazon or even Ingram Spark or the distributors from Ingram Spark, then you miss out on that because one, you don't even know who the customer is because you don't get that customer data. You don't have their name, you don't have their email address to be able to follow up with them, you don't have a way to text them, you have nothing to be able to connect with them. And so hosting your pre-order on your site gives you that flexibility and it gives you that freedom because then you're able to have that consistent communication with them. You're able to reach out to them and say, hey, did you get your order yet? Or did you get your bonus yet? Things of that sort. And so that's the ownership I'm talking about. And so in his case, he hosted his on his website. And it also gave the ability and flexibility to do what are called upsells, where you're selling something that's on top of the offer. So it's something in addition to your book. And then also downsells. So if he's, as I'll get to his offers in a bit, but something that, okay, if you didn't buy this thing, well, maybe you want to get this thing. And you don't have that as an option when you're selling on sites like Amazon. Now, I'm not saying don't use Amazon for your books. There's plenty of reasons and rationale why it's a good idea to do it. However, one thing to know is that his book is not on Amazon and it's probably not going to be on there for a bit because they obviously have this large inventory. Oh, because I didn't tell you how many books he sold so far. I did. Okay, so I'm sorry. So because he is having that communication with his audience, he is able to know who they are. He can follow up with them throughout the event. I was getting text messages about, oh, Alex is back on, or make sure you tune into this, or XYZ. And he's able to have a closer relationship with them. And it also fosters community because then it's a part of something where people were there together, they were able to purchase together, and to really build that experience. And so, with that, when you're hosting on your own website, you have more follow through. You're also able to keep more money in your pocket. Now, in his case, he sold 2.5 million books, and today I'm sure it's up to 3 million because he's still going strong and he's doing another live stream. But imagine being able to have that kind of bulk order and pay for it up front. Like, I'm sure the discount that he's getting, I'm sure the printing costs for his book are very minimal. And we know other retailers, the printing costs have gone up. Some have gone down slightly, but imagine being able to say, to go to a printer and say, hey, I need to order 3 million copies of my book. And of course, you're going to have to work with a printer who can handle that volume. But the price point that you're going to get per book is well worth it. And even if you have a smaller amount, so for example, with my book over my food brand, it was where I ordered 450 copies of it, and it was a cookbook. And so from that price point, or from working with a bulk printer, an offset printer, I was able to get a much cheaper price point for the book because I was printing hundreds at a time. And I paid for it through pre-orders. So it wasn't something that I had to come out of pocket for very long. I did have to make the initial deposit from my own funds, but once I pre-sold the book, then I was able to recoup that cost within less than 2 months. And so it makes it a lot easier. It gives me more options. I'm able to give discounts if I need to. I'm able to position things with it. So I'm able to sell things with it and give extra bonuses because I have more flexibility and more wiggle room. So many times as authors, the assumption is that you have to scrounge for these pennies or scrounge for this dollar or two that you're making per book. When in actuality, if you flip that model, and focus on what it is that you can sell that's outside of the book, that's an extension of the book, and really focus on that, and then make your book the downsell or the lower tiered offer, then you're going to be able to actually sell more books. You're going to be able to help more people, and you're going to be able to have more flexibility to be able to do things like donate stuff. And so that was something that I'll talk about in just a second about how his donating approach, and that's something he shares in his books as well. And so it just really makes it easier to do a lot of cool things because you're not trying to figure out, well, how am I going to pay for this? Or how am I going to cover this cost? Because you're able to have that as an option. And then I do want to read an excerpt from my book. There was a section talking about how Amazon's not necessarily the best option for your pre-orders. And I know this might get a lot of flack, but it's just not because of the lack of availability to know who your readers are, the timelines that you're waiting for being able to get your funds, and then the flexibility that you have because you're at the, what is the word I want to use? You are at the mercy of Amazon. So if they decide they want to kick your book off the platform, oh well. If they decide they want to close your account, oh well. So not saying don't use Amazon at all. I'm saying consider options on your site as the forefront or the predominant option as opposed to making Amazon the predominant option. And so let's see. Okay. All right, so I said, yes, I know it sounds like bad advice. However, typically Amazon is not the most lucrative option for independent indie authors. If your focus is on profit, posting your pre-order on Amazon KDP is not ideal. Most independent authors use Amazon to get books in front of readers, not to maximize profit. And so if that's you, because you thought that was the only option, I want to challenge you to really consider the bandwidth that you might have. I want you to consider that you are blocking income that you can use to bless other people by focusing just on selling your pre-order on Amazon. All right, so, and that was from chapter 3 of Profitable Publishing Pre-Orders. So if you haven't already grabbed yours, click the link in the description to do that. Now, the next one I want to share, so step 3, the third lesson of what you can learn from Alex Hormozi's book launch is that, latest book launch, is that your offers create profit, not your books. And so when you think about, okay, I'm generating income, I want to, so many authors that I speak to or work with or see things on Threads or whatever platform I'm on, they say that they want to either go full time or they want to cover certain costs or whatever the case may be. And same thing as a business owner, you might be thinking, okay, I want to add books as another stream of income. But if you're really focusing on just selling the book, then you are missing opportunities. So with Alex's book launch, I'm going to talk about his 3 offers, so what he was selling and then how he positioned them. And so he wasn't just wanting people to buy the book, and honestly, that was probably the least desired option for him. He really wanted people to donate so that he could encourage them to join his other services. And I'll explain how it was positioned. So one thing that Alex is big on, and he speaks about this in his books, is that he wants to make as much money as possible. And then he also wants to, he donates a lot of money to different organizations. And with that, in order to make that happen, he includes bonuses in order to get people to buy the books. So his offers for this were, he had 3 different offers. So the first one was just the book. So $29.99 money models on pre-order. And with that, you got a couple bonuses. So you got a 3-month free trial of his platform that he co-owns called School. You may have heard of it before. It's a community platform similar to Circle or Mighty Network or Facebook groups because there's a big push for people to move to a different platform. And it's got a lot of cool features. And so you might have heard of his school games before, but if not, no problem. So with that, you get 3 months free of School. Typically when it came out, it was $99 a month. And then recently came out with a $9 a month option. Slightly different features, but still way more reasonable than $99 a month. So he's giving 3 months free of that. And then after the 3 months are up, you get put into the $9 a month program. And so that is already something that's accessible for a lot of people, a lot more people than the $99 a month. Then another option he included, or another bonus that you got if you pre-order the book, is that you got access to his course. You got early access. And the course is tied to his book. So his $100 million money models course is tied to the book $100 million money models. And so this is a strategy that I use as well. And I used it with my most recent book, is that as I was developing the course, my Preorder Profits course, I was using I was utilizing the experience with the folks that I was taking through the course and through my group coaching program to write the book. So real life case study, talking to the folks, seeing what feedback they're getting, including it in the book. And so using your book as a point of leverage to condense other programs, or using your book as a point of leverage so that someone can use this if they don't have you, is a game changer. So one thing I went through kind of recently is thinking, okay, I do want to shift to working with less clients, but in order to do that, I have to charge more. And so I'm a former teacher, and like at heart, I'm like, oh, I don't like everybody's not going to be able to afford that if I charge more. But then I came to the realization that, okay, well, if I put everything that some, not everything, but if I put things that someone can get from working with me in a book, this is like taking me with them so they can have that experience and they can get results using that. They don't have to always be working with me. And that's something that was a shift for me because I'm a big hearted person. I want to help people. But at the same time, I have to make a certain level of income to be able to help myself. And then the more money I'm able to make, the more I can bless people, the more I can support people. And so my way of doing that is by writing books and then having those books relate to my other products and services. So if someone wants to work with me more closely in a VIP day and knock their stuff in a couple hours, as opposed to spending however long it might take them to read a book and actually implement it on their own, versus the course version, if they want to go at their own pace, then that's fine. So I have different options. And so Alex really embodied that with this, but flipped it on its head a little bit by providing it as a way to donate. So let me explain. So we got the first offer, which is the book. So that was $29.99. And with shipping, it was like 40 something dollars because they charge $10 for shipping, which is a little higher. And I only know that because I ship books. So like for that size of book, it's a little higher, but they probably are eating some costs in some kind of way. And the amount of value that they provided with the extras, it's more than worth the extra $10. So with the book, so you got the 3 months access to school, then you got the course. So well worth it. So essentially you're getting a course, you're getting 3 months of software, and then also they provided the audiobook. Now for me, I'm an audiobook girly. I love audiobooks. At my season in my life with a 5 and a 2-year-old, audiobook me, please. So he understands his audience. He understands that also from a learning style standpoint or from a processing standpoint, that when you actually are able to couple the visual, so couple the reading with coupling the listening to the book, it deepens the knowledge of understanding. And I'm speaking as a former reading teacher for elementary school students, when you're able to have multiple what is the word I'm looking for? Multiple modalities, it makes it easier to learn because it taps into multiple parts of your brain and it just sticks better. And so maybe someone will read both of them, or maybe someone will choose the one that they prefer to. But I know for me, when I do audiobooks, if it's something I really like, I'm going to go buy the physical book because then I can listen to it and also like highlight and do all that other good stuff. And what's funny is I had to explain to my son why I was writing in a book the other day because what are you doing? Why? No, don't do that. Don't do that. So, anyway, but that's that point. So you're getting those three things all for $29.99 with shipping and tax and stuff. So that was the first offer, is the book. The second offer was for you to donate 200 copies of the book. Now, when you're doing that, the way that he worded it was really cool because he's wording it as like, okay, these are books that you're donating to other entrepreneurs to help them to be successful. And he spent a lot of time focusing on that, and of course is pitching multiple times throughout the whole 10 hours. And okay, let me take a step back. I didn't sit there and watch all 10 hours consecutively. I don't want y'all to think that I just have that kind of time on my hands. So I was able to go grab lunch. I did a pickup order. I decluttered my oldest son's room, rearranged that, finished setting up my youngest son's room, cleaned out a closet, did all this other stuff. So I'm listening. And then when I would take breaks, I would go back to where I stopped and then listen at 2x speed, which is typically where I listen anyway, which is also part of the reason why I talk so fast because I'm used to listening to things at a higher speed. And so I'm working to slow down. But say all that to say, within that 10 hours, he, of course, is repitching, re-saying, hey, buy the book, buy the book, buy the book, but also really donate to other entrepreneurs. So then that taps into a different side for people. It taps into the side of those who want to give back. And he's saying this is tax deductible. So then you're also the people who are like, oh, I need some tax deductions, but I can also help other people. And the people who are like me, who are like, well, I'd like to bless somebody, then that's an option. I didn't grab the 200 copies. I just got my copy. But if it was something that made sense for me at the time, then I would. And so that version was $5,900 for the 200 copies of the book. But the way that he positioned it, he included extra books. So not of the Money Models book. He included a whole set of additional what he called playbooks to implement the strategies. And so I don't remember how many it is, and I'll have to take a look in a sec. But let me see if I can pull it up. He implemented, so essentially he wrote a set of like 8 to 10 additional books to help you to implement the strategies. So there was like one on ads. There was one on closing. So like if you're doing a webinar, how to close people to get them to actually purchase. There was one that was on, wait a minute, let me look. There's one on providing proof for folks to have them actually believe you when you're saying things. There's one on pricing. Like there's just so, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. There were 12, I'm sorry. I said 10. So there's 12 that are there, and it's this giant situation. So he's got these all spread out because he's got the physical copies, and then he's got this other playbook that's with it together. So you're getting all 12 playbooks, and then you also get access to an AI system that he's created that he's basically trained on all of that content. So trained on all 3 of his books, all 12 of these mini books that are actually helping you tap into that system. And then you're getting 200 copies of the book in the form of redemption codes. So that means that people are able to, that you're able to give those to people, but they are going to ship them out for you. So you don't have to worry about trying to ship out 200 books. They're going to handle that for you on the back end. And I'm sure for the audience that he was trying to reach out to, that is a huge selling point, because I'm sure they're not trying to sell or ship or give away 200 books. And then he even mentioned like, okay, at the end of the year, if you have the end of like a calendar year, well, within 12 months. So, so like by this time next year, if you haven't sold your books or you haven't given away your books, because he was like, you can sell them, you can give them away. I really want you to help other entrepreneurs. Then we will give them away to somebody else. So it's like they have already built in the idea that they are going to do this for you, even if you are not going to do it for yourself. So it's like, okay, if you forget, something happens. We all know we get caught up in those, like, oh, dang, it's been a year already. I didn't even do this thing. Then you don't have to worry about that because he's figured it out for you, which is just bananas and very smart. It shows that he understands his audience. He understands that life gets busy, because the type of people that are going to be able to drop $6,000 on books, and also the system, because you're not just paying for the books, you're paying for his playbooks, the implementation workshop, because he also included a live workshop for you to attend. He understands that those people are busy and they're not going to want to sit and ship books. So that, to me, is something that is saying that he really understands his audience, and he's also positioning it so they are willing to purchase that. So he's got the book by itself for the individual consumer, and then he's got an option where you are donating books. And every time he mentioned it, it was a donate 200 books. It wasn't a buy 200 books. It was donate 200 books. These are the things you're getting. These are why these things work. And this is how it's going to change your life and the lives of others. And so that was one option. And then the third option was an 800 book set. Now, this one was his highest level for this option of the different offers, and it also included access to him and his team for 6 months. Now, he's someone who I'm sure charges, I think he said his day rate, I want to say it was like $35,000. Don't quote me on that. I don't remember for sure. But someone who charges like a good chunk of change to work with him. And so you're getting access to him for 6 months. And then you're also getting the 800 books. And so for those level of people, those are people who are going to have clients who they could easily gift the book to them as a part of their products or services. Like if they have their own programs, they can say, oh, and here you get a copy of this book. They could resell them. He was like, whatever you want to do with them is fine. And so to me, that shows that he really understands the different levels of the people that are attracted to him, because he's got the one for the individual, he's got the one for like the mid-size entrepreneur, and then he's got the one for who are the people that are like, you're making hundreds of millions of dollars or maybe tens of millions of dollars. And he's found a way to keep the process relatively the same, but provide value and provide something that's going to support them. So when I say that, because honestly, in essence, each of the offers was just books. So it was a book to the individual, it was a book to the person who's like mid-size for them to donate books. So 200 books. So it's one book, 200 books, and then 800 books. But with that, you got certain things that incentivize people to be able to purchase. And it was always a donate type situation. And so to me, that really spoke because, like I said earlier, I have a heart for people and I want to help people, but I also know that I need to make money to stay in business. And so that was like a good combination for me in that sense. And so I think my little one's trying to break it. And so with that, another thing was that I noticed the lowest point on the live stream whenever I saw it. I'm sure there were low points, but the lowest amount of people that were on the stream were 20,000 at any given point that I saw. And that just speaks to me, like, if you've never heard of him before, but the fact that he had way more than 20,000 people on there at a time, is just that, like, often we can get so caught up in, like, oh, nobody wants to buy my book or nobody's interested in this service, when it's like, there are billions of people in the world. Billions. There are tons of people who have not discovered you yet. He might be new to you. This might be the first time you've heard about him, or maybe you've heard about him before, but don't get so caught up in who is it that doesn't know who you are yet, and really focus on finding those people. And so I just want to put that out there for anybody that needs that little nugget. And then also with this, consider, or the takeaway from this is, from this point, is don't focus on the pricing of your book at just that price point. So your $20 book, your $25 book, if you're a nonfiction book author, don't focus on that price point. Think about the things you can sell that are outside of the book, the things you can do to enhance the book, the things that you can do to give away in addition and position as a bonus, as opposed to just saying, okay, this is the book and you can add on these things. Package it up, make it something that's a part of an experience for them, and then make it irresistible for them. Take away all the things that they're worried about, take away in terms of that topic. Obviously, you're not going to solve all their problems all in the world, but take away the things that they're worried about with that, and show that you understand them, and show that you are able to make this portion solve this one problem for them and make it easier. All right, so to recap, we were talking about 5 launch lessons to learn from Alex Hormozi's latest book launch, and how you can maximize your pre-order profits. So the first one was to realize that pre-orders are your validation and upfront income to be able to purchase your launch materials and actually cover your publishing costs in real time when you host them on your site. The second one is to really consider that you have ownership and how that's the real currency. So hosting on your website makes it so that you can control their customer experience, their journey. The third point was that offers create profits and not just your books. So think about what are the things you can sell alongside your book and not just your book, because those other things are where the money resides. I know we don't say that no more, but that's where the money resides. So, all right, the fourth thing, I want you to think about how scale is relative. So don't focus so much on, okay, well, Alex has multi-millions of dollars, or this other person has this really large audience, and that can never be me, or yada yada. I want you to just peel that back and don't even think about that, because yes, the scale is relative. So obviously his launch, his 2.5 million books sold, and however much money that is, which I'm not going to do the math because it could have been different packages. It likely was different packages, because some people got the 800 package, some people got the 200 package, some people got the individual book package. But even if actually, I'm gonna do the math. I lied. Let me do the math. So even so, even if it was the individual book package, if I multiply that times 2.5 million, let me see what this number is. Okay, that's $75 million. Yes, I had to do my counting with the commas. So, which I'm sure was more than that. Like, that's just an individual book. So yes, he's making a lot of money, but he's also putting in a lot of effort and a lot of time, and he has a team. He's not trying to do these things by himself. He understands, and that was one of the things when he was taking a break. His wife Layla is in the business with him, and she's like she's a shark in her own right. Like she knows her stuff. She's not just like as an accessory, but like she's good. Um, she was saying, like, yeah, we're not doing this by ourselves. We have a huge team. We have people that support us, and then also they really take care of those people. And so when they were on one of the breaks, because Alex literally only took a break probably for like, it was less than an hour. So it was Layla and another business owner that's within the company with them that were talking. And she's like, yeah, like even with somebody who we had to let go recently because they went against our policies. They like broke up policy rule or whatever. She was like, I didn't really want to let them go because they were a good person. And but I made sure they had, I think, 5 months severance or whatever. And she was like, I didn't have to do that, but it was the right thing to do. And so I say all that to say, take care of your people, and also understand you can scale those things down. So maybe you don't have a big team like Alex. Maybe you don't have millions of dollars to put in ads. Maybe you don't have all these other things. However, you have the advantage and flexibility to be able to implement things and pivot. Large companies and corporations can't pivot like that. So for example, let's say, I'm taking it back in the day. So let's say this company, I'm drinking water now, Gene, from the 90s or 2000s. Let's say there's a typo in this. They have to spend multi-millions of dollars to be able to adjust that typo because they need to fix it. However, if you had a typo on one of your things, it wouldn't be as expensive to fix it because you don't have as much product or you don't have as many things. So like let's say you have like a bookmark or launch material. You have the ability to make that pivot and make that change. And then your reordering process is going to be a lot shorter because you're not ordering as many. So consider the ways in which you can be creative with what it is that you offer your folks. Maybe you can add additional in-person experiences. That is something they mentioned that they did, but they kept mentioning how it wasn't scalable because obviously there's a ton more people that want to meet with them than they're able to physically meet with. But maybe you provide that. Maybe that's your bread and butter of like, okay, instead of having this workshop virtually, we're going to have it in person. And so if you're able to attend, if you want to travel or live within this area, I'm doing a pop-up workshop. Like you have the ability to do these things that are really cool experiences that others can't do. So don't see that as a detriment that you are a smaller organization, smaller business owner, smaller author. See it as a bonus for yourself. And so then also, one thing that you can do as well that doesn't really matter about how large you are is thinking about your previous experiences that you have with customers and using your previous customers as a part of your case study. So previous customers is part of your way to show people that your methods work, your systems work. And one thing that he did is he invited 5 mystery guests, and they all happened to be, not happened, I'm sure this was very strategic. All 5 mystery folks ended up being his either current or former clients. And all of them were $100 million earners. Now his book is $100 million money models. So obviously that was aligned. But then also he brought them on, he interviewed them, asked them like, how did using this process help you? And there were other questions he asked them too. But basically you're able to see in real time, like a mini case study, 5 of them in real time, like, okay, the strategies from this book that he used with them help them to achieve XYZ. And so that's something that you're providing that validation without directly saying like, oh, this could work for you. You're showing, okay, that is something that happens for them. Maybe I can do that too. And not in a way that's going to get him like in trouble with the FTC or things like that for making income claims. It was something where it was just, okay, this is something I wish I would have had. There was one guy who, he was older than Alex, and I don't know how old Alex is, but he was like, yeah, why didn't I have this when I first started out? And Alex was like, I wasn't born yet. And so he's like, I couldn't have created this because I wasn't born yet. And so he was like, yeah, this would have saved me decades of work. It would have saved me decades, and it would have saved me a lot of struggle and pain and things like that. And so just imagine, what former clients can you bring on board? What people can you implement or not implement? What people can you put as many case studies inside your book, which is something I've included as well? What clients can you extract their story and even interview them live, interview them in a written version? One thing I did for the clients that I inserted into this book is I let them know what the blurb was about them. I did a little mini case study for them, and then I got their approval and said, hey, is this okay? Do you want to change anything? Do you want to tweak anything? Do I have permission to share your story? Da da da. And then some of them had also done video testimonials for me. So asking is key, but also understanding that they can be just as powerful, even if it's someone who is not $100 million earner. So use that to your advantage. Understand that scale is relative and you can always shrink these things down to implement for yourself. And then the 5th and final lesson that I want you to learn from Alex Hormozi's pre-order and launch is that pre-orders can build momentum and not stress. And so, not saying you're not going to be stressed. So when it comes to pre-orders, you want to think about it as a way to build your momentum and not be stressed about it. It's a way to tap into your existing audience and get all of that like love from them. Use it as a way to carry you through the rest of your launch because launching is exhausting. And use it as a way to validate and say, okay, people really do want what it is that I have to offer. And so in this case, Alex didn't show up thinking, okay, I need to make my money on the back end. He knew ahead of time, I'm going to secure my pre-order and actually use my pre-order to cover my publishing costs, cover my printing costs likely, cover my launch expenses for this huge launch that I'm going to have. He didn't try to think, oh, okay, I'm going to get my money back later. He knew, okay, no, I'm going to get it up front and I'm going to make sure I recover what it is that I've already expended because it's just a smart business model. And that's one of the things that's so important when you are an author is to really think like a business owner. You have to put on your business hat. And I know that if you're an author and a business owner, this is already natural to you. But if you're thinking, okay, well, I'm just an author, I just want to write, then you're either going to have to enlist the help of someone else to do that for you, or you're going to have to learn it yourself. And it's definitely something that's a learnable skill. And it's not something that you can't tap into. It's just you have to decide if that's what you want and if that aligns with the goals that you have. If you're thinking, okay, it doesn't really matter to me that I don't sell a lot of books or that I don't reach a bunch of people, that's fine. But if you know that you want to spend time tapping into meeting with your right reader or even having consistent income with your books, then bringing in that business side of things is so important and so key. And so just the fact of like 84,000 pre-orders, bananas. And I'm just like, that's amazing. And so, and to break a Guinness World Record, like there's so many things that had to go into place in order to make this happen, and so many months of planning. It wasn't just a, I'm gonna pop up and I'm just gonna pop up on live and have my book launch today, or I'm only going to prepare for like 2 weeks for this thing. And the level of preparation aligns with your outcome. If you are prepared, and of course you can't control everything, but if you're prepared and you're putting in the work and you are doing it strategically and you're getting help from the people that are able to see things that you're not able to see just yet, it makes it a lot easier to get those results. It makes it a lot easier to tap into those things because then you're able to have a better high level view as opposed to being in it and in the weeds with those kind of things. So the point here is use your pre-order as a way to jumpstart your launch or jumpstart your book release, and just understand that you can reap those costs before your book's even out. And so that's what I teach in Pre-Order Profits, the course, and also in Profitable Publishing with Pre-Orders, the book. So this last part, we're going to do some just quick takeaways about my overall thoughts on the launch. And so one thing that I noticed, and I'm going to show you his previous book. So his first book is $100 million offers. And he even mentioned with the launch of this book, he just released it, didn't really do a launch per se. Like he didn't have a launch event, he just released it. And then when he did this book, this is his second book, he had a launch event very similar to the event that he had for this one. And he was able to sell more with the current book. So the third book that's out, The Money Models, the event that I attended yesterday, which was free, by the way. I don't even think I said that. That was free. Free on YouTube. You just registered. And even if you didn't register, you saw it on YouTube. Anyway, trending threads, all that. So for at the launch of this book, he actually held up a copy of the newest book. And this launch was 2 years ago. I'm pretty sure that's what he said. Let me check the copyright. Yeah, 2023. So this launch was 2 years ago, and he already had the copy of the book he released yesterday at this launch. So that tells me that he has spent a lot of time planning and being very thorough, and also just looking at the branding of each. So they look like they go together. One thing one of my coaches, Audrey Richmond, says is that your offers should go together, your stuff should go together. And in this case, they do. So the first one is about offers, so like what to actually sell and how to make it so good that people feel stupid saying no. The second one is about generating leads to be able to sell those offers to. And then the book he released yesterday is about creating money models, so creating a system or path for people to be able to purchase from you repeatedly and consistently. So he felt like it was something to tie together. And then with that, I mentioned earlier he had the mini books where if you purchased the larger tiers, then you got access to those mini books. And so those were things on like ads, closes, drawing a blank, but there were 12 different mini books that, let me see, I still have it pulled up. 12 different mini books that, so like pricing, lead nurturing, and customer retention, things like that. And so all of that takes advanced planning. Like in order for you to come out with one book, of course it takes a lot of planning, but in order for you to come out with 12 additional books, like like you know that GIF where like your cap is going, like it's just, that's a lot of planning. And it also is a lot of organization in terms of not only leading yourself to be able to do that, but also leading your organization, your company, not organization, but leading your company and helping them understand the bigger picture of everything within this. Because one thing that they mentioned is they had 300 phone agents that were ready to talk to people. And so in order to train that many people and things of that sort, and also to have your team, it takes time and it takes planning. And so when you are doing your launch, when you're doing your pre-order, you want to make sure that you give it that, you want to give it enough time to be successful. I speak to authors, and for example, I spoke to one and she wanted to release her book the day after we talked on the phone. And she realized that was an option. So I'm not talking about her, but I've had people say, "Oh yeah, I think I want my book to come out next week." Okay, well, have you told anybody about your book? Have you let anybody know that your book is coming? Have you like, no, you haven't. And so why not give your book the opportunity to be successful? When you don't do that, then it ends up being, well, I don't know why anybody bought it. I don't know, I'm not making any sales. You have to have that preparation if you want your book to be successful. If you're writing it because you just wanted to get it out, and there are books like that. Like there are some books I'll write that I'm just like, I just need to get it out of my head so it's out there. And I might not spend time marketing or advertising it, but it's more so because it's not something I want to be known for. But if it's something you want to be known for and it's something you want to build your brand with, give it the time and energy to be successful. Like it makes no sense to put all of this effort into writing a book and then not marketing it. Okay, let me jump off my soapbox. So, another thing is that he listened to his audience. And so he has two different audiences. And I know typically you hear focus on one reader, focus on one ideal customer, but there's levels to it. So essentially, the way in which his books are written is he wants you to move up the ascension ladder. So, and even this is a strategy I use in my book as well. To my most recent book, I didn't use it in my previous books, but the sense of, yes, you have this book. Yes, you have this complete thing that can help get done whatever you need to get done. But if you need more support, you can join my course. If you need even more support, let's sign up for a VIP day to work together. And so, yes, he has a goal of selling these books, but the books are a tool to use to be able to get people to sign up for his higher ticket packages. And not in a way that you're trying to scheme folks. I don't mean like that at all. But in the sense of, you understand that you've created something that's like a complete model, a complete system that they can use to be able to get the results. But you also know there's going to be people who need more support. So when I was in the classroom, I taught for over a decade, and I taught both students and teachers. And so I was a literacy coach for a portion and then also a general classroom teacher. You start to understand that people need different levels of support. So you understand, okay, some students you can just give the directions to, got it, they're good to go. Other students, they're going to need to see multiple examples, which you should do examples anyway, but they're going to need to see multiple examples. They're going to need you to walk them through it, and then they'll be good and they can kind of master it on their own, somewhat on their own with more support. And then there's other people who are like, I need to ask you 11 questions in order to make sure I'm doing it right. Or I need to make sure you're right next to me while I'm doing this because I want to make sure I'm like on it. And that's fine. Everybody needs different levels. And so you as a business owner, you as an author can provide those different levels by creating different options that align with your book. And so that was something that he does really well. And that's something that I did with my most recent book. And then also something I want to continue to do because I understand that there's also a cap. Like at some point, there's going to be a cap, I'm sure, for him where he's just going to want to stop working, and it might be when he's dead and gone. But at some point, you're going to want to have it where you are eased out of your business or eased out from being in the spotlight. And if you are an author who's like, I've never wanted to be in the spotlight, then go ahead and learn this lesson early. That was something he mentioned, is that one of the additional playbooks was about how to remove his face from the business. So like having it be so dependent on him. And that's something that's so important because if you get sick, if you are like, I just don't want to do this anymore, or like you don't have the capacity or something happens, there's just so many things where you want to make it so that you are not required to always show up physically yourself selling books at a vending event. Not that there's anything wrong with vending, but that can't be the only option that you use. You want to make it so that you have different options besides showing up on social media, because things happen and you might not want to show up on social media every day. So getting those systems in place are so important. And then listening to his audience. And so I mentioned this earlier, the fact that he knew, okay, the people that are going to order those 200 bundles and the 800 book bundles are not going to be people who want to ship books. They're also going to be people who will really benefit and love and also be able to afford working more closely with me. And so I'm going to make that a bonus and roll it into the cost. And so he positioned it as a donate 200 books so that you can support 200 other authors, or donate 800 books so that you can support 800 other authors. So it's automatically like a beneficiary, whatever. The beneficiary. In other words, you're benefiting somebody else by still getting your needs met as well. And that reciprocity is helpful because people feel like, okay, I can help them, but I can also help myself. And it was a tax write-off. And so that, of course, as a business owner is very helpful. And then lastly, one thing that one of my former coaches always share, former coaches shares, is launch, analyze, optimize. And so that means you need to launch the thing, get the thing out there, analyze what's working, optimize, make it better. And Lamar Tyler is the one who I got this from. And so with Alex, like his last launch was good. It was mind blowing, and it helped boost his reputation. But he realized, like, okay, I've had this great launch, but now I'm going to spend the next 2 years really increasing my social proof. And so if you are familiar with Alex, you'll know that the amount of content that this man is able to produce with his team, of course, rivals, like it's up there with Gary Vaynerchuk, or how do you say his last name? Like it's up there with him. And so he understands that, like, and listen, hear me. I'm not saying you need to have as much content as Alex or as much content as Gary. I believe in quality over quantity. However, he also understood that it's a lot easier to test things when you have a larger quantity, because then you can see what's working faster. And he has the capacity and the bandwidth to do it. And I know there were like some seasons where he was doing like cooking stuff, and then he saw that was like flopping because it was weird for him and his audience. And then other seasons where he was doing things that were like very polarizing, or like saying things that were very polarizing, and it was just like you're tone deaf. And so I think all of that was just a path of like, let me see what works, let me start a buzz, let me see what works, things like that. And that's kind of some of the reasons why people feel like, okay, you're out of touch. And as someone who makes, I'm sure he makes hundreds of millions of dollars, I'm sure he is going to be out of touch with some folks. But the reality is the people that he's trying to reach, he's in touch with them. So those are the same problems that those folks have. Those are the same mindsets that those folks have, to some degree. Not everybody in that group, but he listens to his audience and then he makes adjustments. So regardless of how you feel about him, listen to your audience, because let's bring it back to you. Listen to your audience, understand their needs, and then implement that. What are some things you can do that are going to support them? What are some things you can do that are going to make their lives easier when it comes to your book and your launch? What are some things you can couple together with your book so that you are able to have it be something that is beneficial for them? And if you need support with this, then I do include different options inside my book. Or if you haven't already grabbed Alex's books, I would recommend it. I'll put the links in the show notes for this video. But I would recommend it to grab them because it's helpful to be able to map out what you're selling to attract those folks. And then also, eventually, the money model one, to be able to make it a recurring system. And so, thank you for joining me for this. Let me know in the comments what was your biggest takeaway and whether or not you joined and watched the live stream. And if you are catching this the same day, then actually he's still going live. When I started recording this, he was at hour 5 of day 2. And so I'm sure this version will be more condensed than yesterday's. And so thanks so much.